He cannot hear you, Adela. You may as well talk to the bed curtain. The physician says he may hear. The physician says whatever will keep him coming twice a day at a guinea a time. Gideon Halloway, 5th Duke of Dunmarch, lay on his back in the great chamber at Dunmarch on the 11th day after the fall, and heard every word of that, and could not move so much as a finger to answer it. He could see the tester above him and the corner of the window. He could hear. He could not speak, and he could not turn his head. And when his cousin Mortimer walked round the foot of the bed, he passed out of the world and came back into it like a man crossing behind a pillar. Look at him. 6 weeks ago he took that gate at Barrow with 3 lengths in hand. Do not, Mortimer. I am not being unkind. I am being useful, which nobody in this house has been for a fortnight. Chair scraped. Consider it plainly. He does not speak and he does not stir. If he lives like this. And somebody must sign the leases, pay the wages and answer the bank. That somebody cannot be a woman of 26 out of a clockmaker's shop at Markford. She is his wife. She is his purchase, said Mortimer. He wanted £11,000 and a quiet house, and he bought both, and now the shop is going to sit up here in a black gown for 40 years telling us what he would have wished. I have written to London. There will be a commission, and it will find what any commission must find, and the care of his person and his estate will go where it can be exercised. Somebody set a jug down on marble. You will not write to London again, said a third voice, until you have said it to me first, in daylight, in a room with a door. The Duke of Dunmarch would lie 4 months in that bed. In the 11th week he would say 3 words that cost him more than the fall had, and before the year was out he would be carried down his own staircase to take them back in front of the whole county, and every person in that hall would know he had left it too late. Thomasson, said Adela. We thought you at the home farm. I was. Now I am here. She came round into the strip of ceiling and window that was all the world Gideon had, and he saw her for the first time in 3 days, a small, upright, plain-faced young woman with her sleeves pinned back and a smear of goose grease on one wrist. Mr. Halloway, say it again. All of it at my face, and then I shall know what I am dealing with. My dear cousin, you said he does not hear. You do not know that. Nobody in England knows that. She set the jug on the washstand and did not look away from him. 11 days ago my husband came off a horse. Since then you have stood at the foot of that bed twice a day and discussed his estate over his body, and the one thing you have never once done is stand where he can see you and say good morning. Because he cannot. Then it costs you nothing, said Thomasson, and I notice you will not do it. There was a silence in the great chamber that Gideon, who could not turn his head, filled entirely with the sound of his own heart. You are hysterical, said Adela. I have not raised my voice, my lady. Neither of you has troubled to notice. Thomasson sat down on the edge of the bed, which no one had done, and took his left hand in both of hers, which no one had done either, and Gideon felt it, and the feeling of it went through him like a bell struck in an empty house. Now, there are 3 things to be settled before dinner, and I would rather settle them here. Before him? In front of him. First, the wages. The rents were stopped on the 2nd day, and the servants have not been paid, and there are 19 of them, and the coal merchant will not deliver on tick to a house with a commission talked about in it. Second, the physician's draughts. Third, this house is not to be discussed in this room again. The rents, said Mortimer, are stopped because there is no hand in this house competent to receipt them. There is a hand, said Thomasson. It is on the pillow. That is exactly the sentiment I have written to London about. I am sure it is. She rose. Then hear the rest of it, cousin, since we are all being useful. If I leave this room for a week, you will have him at Farrow before I am back. There is a house at Farrow that takes gentlemen who are inconvenient, and you have already had the keeper's name off Dr. Skell, because I found the letter in the study on Tuesday, and I put it back where it was so that you should not know I had. So I shall not be leaving this room, and I shall not be going to Markford, and I shall not be going home, because I have not got a home. My father died in March, and the shop is shut, and everything I have on earth is under this roof, which is precisely why you think and do as you like. She picked up the jug. You may go down. I shall shave him. They went. Gideon lay in the dark of his own body and listened to the water going into the basin, and the strop and her breathing, and after a while she said, conversationally, to a man everyone in the house had agreed was not there, "You have the beard of a coal-heaver, your grace, and I have never shaved anybody in my life. If you can hear me, you will want to be afraid. 3 times a day, madam, morning, noon, and at 9. It has been so since the day he was brought in." Written where? I beg your pardon? Written where, Dr. Skell? In what book, on what page, over whose name? Gideon lay and listened to a physician of 30 years standing discover that he was being asked a question. "It is not customary. Then we shall make it customary, because I have begun a book, paper." The 2nd of September, a draught at 8, one at 1, one at 9. The 3rd of September, the same. Every day of 11 days, and at the foot of each a space for your signature, and I shall be obliged if you will sign the 11 now. I shall do no such thing. Then I shall write in the space that Dr. Skell was asked to sign and declined. The pen went on scratching. There. It is done, and it is dated, and the book open on that press, and the housekeeper has read it, and the nurse has read it, and neither of them can be got to say otherwise afterwards, because I have made them put their names under mine. Your grace, what is in it? It is a composing draught. It is black drop, said Thomasson. I know the smell of it. My father took it for the stone the last 2 years of his life, and I made it up for him, and I know within a grain what is in that glass. My husband has had it 3 times a day for 11 days. Tell me, sir, and be very careful, is a man given black drop 3 times a day likely to rouse? The silence went on a long time. It is given for the quieting of. He is quiet, said Thomasson. He has been quiet for 11 days. Nobody in this house has ever asked what he would be if he were not. Gideon, who had spent 11 days at the bottom of a well with the daylight a long way up, heard that and could have wept if his face had been his own. You will kill him, madam. Then it will be in the book, in my hand, over my name, and you may take it to any court in England. A stopper went into a bottle. The still-room key is on this ring, and the ring does not leave me. You may attend twice a day as before, and I shall pay you out of my own pocket if the rents are stopped, and I shall write down what you say. But you will not put another grain of that into him without setting it down first, and you will not set it down, sir, because you have not once examined him. You have taken his pulse at the wrist 11 times in 11 days. You have never asked him to look at you. He cannot. You have never asked. Skell went. She sat down on the edge of the bed and let out a breath that shook, and said to the ceiling rather than to him, well, that is the physician quarrelled with, and it is only Tuesday. He was 3 days coming up. It was like being drawn out of deep water on a rope. On the first day the ceiling stopped swimming. On the second he found the window with his eyes and held it. On the third, at about 4 in the afternoon, with the light going yellow on the tester, he moved his eyes from the window to her face, deliberately, and held them there and watched her see it happen. She did not scream, or run for anyone, or make a speech. She put down the sponge and took his hand and said, in a voice with the bottom out of it, "There you are." Then she said, "Do not let them see, not yet." And he understood her exactly, and understood that she had thought about it, and that the thinking had frightened her, and he lay there loving her so suddenly and so violently that it was like a second fall. She kept a rule after that. Twice a day, morning and at 9, she sat where he could see her and told him the house. The 9th of September. The rents are still stopped. Mortimer has the receipt book locked in the study, and I have not been able to get at it, and I am not going to break a lock, because that is what he wants. 19 servants, and Wednesday is the quarter. The coal came. Do not be anxious about the coal. The byre roof is off at the corner, and I have told him it will be seen to, and it will be, and I would rather you did not ask me how. A pause. The Marchford men were paid on Friday. All of them, to the shilling. So there is one thing off your mind, if it was ever on it. The Marchford men. Gideon lay in the dark that night and turned it over, and could make nothing of it whatever. There were no Marchford men. Dunmarch had no business at Marchford. It had a corn factor at Wexley and a bank at Barrow, and nothing at Marchford at all except a shut-up clockmaker's shop with a dead man's name over the door. He had never in his life paid anybody at Marchford. He could not ask. That was the particular torment of it. He could hear a thing that did not fit and had no way on earth to say what. There were other things that did not fit. There was money in the house. 19 servants had been paid on the 24th, and the coal had come on tick to a house with a commission talked about in it, and the physician came twice a day, and the byre roof was mended in October, and the rents had been stopped since the second day and stayed stopped. He lay and did the arithmetic. It was the only work left to him, and he did it for hours at a stretch, out of boredom and then out of something else. It came to £60 a month at the least. £60 a month out of a house with no rents, kept by a woman whose father had died in March leaving a shut shop, and who had told his cousin to his face that everything she had on earth was under this roof. Something was wrong with the sum. He could not think what, and there was nobody in the world he could ask, and every evening she came in at 9 and told him the coal had come and the men were paid, and he was not to be anxious, and every evening he lay there afterwards in the dark and could not account for a single shilling of it. Once for yes, twice for no. Nothing at all means you are asleep or being difficult, and I shall assume the second. It was the 14th of October, and he had got his left hand back, not the arm, not the fingers separately, but a slow closing of the whole hand that took him the better part of a second and cost him more than the gait at Barrow ever had. She laid her wrist inside his palm. Oh, 2. Are you in pain? 1. Where? No, that will not do, she thought. I shall say the alphabet and you will stop me. It will be unbearably slow and neither of us has anywhere to go. It took 11 minutes to get 5 letters, and when she had them she sat back and looked at them and said, S-H-A-V-E, and then, you have spent 11 minutes on that. 1. You are perfectly hideous and you have been for 6 weeks. 1. Very well, said Thomasson and laughed, and stopped laughing rather too fast and got up for the water. He learned things about his wife of 18 months that autumn which he had not troubled to learn in 18 months. That she wound every clock in the house herself on a Sunday, all 14 in order, and would not let a footman touch one. That she could not sing. That she had a way of standing at a window with her thumb on her lip when she was doing sums. That she had married him because her father asked her to. And that her father had asked her to because a clockmaker with a bad chest looks at his daughter and thinks of £11,000 and a title on a house that will not fall down, and that she had never once, in 18 months, complained about it to anyone, including to the man who had taken the 11,000. He learned that she did not soften. That was the thing that undid him. She was brisk and exact and endlessly patient, and she did not soften by a hair. She never said a tender word to him in the whole of October. She said once for yes and twice for no, and sit up if you can, and that is enough for today, and went out. And he lay listening to her feet going along the gallery and could not tell, from anything she had ever said or done, whether she would stay in that room a day longer than duty kept her. Once he spelled W-H-Y. Why what? Said Thomasson. He could not spell the rest. It would have taken 40 minutes and he had not got the words even in his own head. She waited, and then she squared the pillow and said, because somebody must, and took the basin out, and that was the whole of the answer he got. Mortimer came up on the 22nd of October with a paper and stood at the foot of the bed and read it aloud in a clear, pleasant voice. A commission is issued out of Chancery, in the nature of a writ de lunatico inquirendo, to inquire whether Gideon, Duke of Dunmarch, be of unsound mind and incapable of governing himself, his lands and his goods. It will sit in the great hall of this house on the 9th of November, before a jury of the county, 16 good men. Dr. Skell will be heard. The household will be heard. And upon the finding, the care of your person and the management of your estate will be committed where the Lord Chancellor thinks fit. He folded it. The 9th of November, cousin. 18 days. I am sorry for it. I do not expect you to believe that, but there it is. I have known you since we were boys, and I did not want this. You will be well looked after. Pharaoh is not what people say it is. Gideon lay and looked at the tester and put every ounce of himself into his left hand, and got it closed once slowly on the counterpane, and Mortimer did not see it because Mortimer was looking at the window. He moved, said Thomasson from the door. He did not. He closed his hand. I have been watching him do it for 8 days, and I have written down the hour of every time. Madam, said Mortimer, not unkindly, the 16 men who sit in that hall will have been shown a book kept by a wife, and a wife who wants a thing very much can see a hand move at 40 paces. That is exactly what a commission is for. Then bring the 16 men up here. They will not come up here. They will sit in the hall, and the evidence will come down to them. Then I shall come down, Adela said from the corridor. Thomasson, do not. And then, in a lower voice that Gideon only just caught, and that he thought about for a long time afterwards, you cannot win it. You are 26, and you are a shop, and they will make you say things in front of the whole county that you will not be able to unhear. Take what he offers you. He will offer you something. He always does. The door shut. Gideon lay in the great chamber with the light going out of the window and heard, far off through 2 floors of stone, the sound of somebody in the hall below counting chairs. 18 days. He turned it over and over, and the arithmetic of it came out the same every time, and there was nothing whatever he could do with it, because he was a man in a bed who could close one hand in a second and a half, and could not say a single word out loud. The word came on the 29th of October at about 7 in the evening, and it came out of him like a stone out of a wall. Thom, she was oppressed with the book. She did not turn round at once. He saw her hand stop on the page. Say it again. Thomasson. She came across the room and sat down on the bed and put her hands over her face, and stayed like that for the space of perhaps 4 breaths, and then took them away and was perfectly composed except that her nose had gone red, and said, "Now I shall never get any peace," in a voice that failed entirely on the last word. "Do not cry. I am not crying, your grace. I have a cold, and if you say another word about it I shall put the black drop back in the cupboard." He laughed. It was a terrible sound, a sort of hoarse knocking, and it hurt his chest, and it was the best thing that had happened to him since the 28th of August. They had 6 days. He could manage perhaps 40 words a day, thickly and slowly, and always fewer in the evening. He spent them badly, the way a man spends the first money he has had in a year. He asked for the window open. He asked what the frost had done to the late turnips. He said her name a great many times, because it was the only word that came out whole. He did not ask about Marchford. He meant to. He was saving it, the way he was saving everything, for a day when he could get out a whole sentence and hear the whole of the answer, and he was ashamed of the question and had not yet found a shape for it that did not sound like an accusation. Mortimer and Adela began that week to talk in the room again. They did it differently now. They knew he heard. They stood at the foot of the bed with their faces towards him and were kind, and everything they said was true, and there was not one lie among the whole of it. She was at Marchford again on Thursday, Gideon. That is the 2nd time, 9 hours from this house. She was 2 hours at the Feathers with a man of business. Half the town saw them come out. I do not say a word against it. She is entitled to have a man of business, only she has never once mentioned him to you, and you have your speech now, and she comes in at 9 and tells you about coal. There is a letter in her writing case, said Adele, from the window, to a house agent at Bath, asking the terms of a small house in a quiet street with a room on the ground floor. I did not open it. It lay face up. I would to God I had not seen it. And in September, said Mortimer, she asked Skell what a widow's jointure comes to at Dunmarch. He told me at the time, and I did not repeat it, and I wish I need not now. They went out and left him with it. Gideon lay in the dark and put it beside the sum he had been doing since September, the sum that had never once come out. £60 a month in a house with no rents, from a woman with a dead father and a shut shop and nothing on earth of her own. He had turned it over for 6 weeks looking for the honest answer, and had not found one. Now he had been handed an answer that fitted every figure, and it fitted so well and so fast, and he was so tired, and there is nothing in this world so persuasive to a man flat on his back as a sum that finally balances. She came in at 9 on the 4th of November with the candle and the book. The 4th. The coal came, the byre roof was mended in October and has held through the rain, and the men were paid on Friday, the Marchford men. The pen stopped. Yes, there are no Marchford men. It was costing him everything he had. There is no business at Marchford. Not in my books. Not in my life. He got his breath. £60 a month, since September. From what? Gideon, you have a man of business you have never named. A letter to Bath. You asked Skell what a widow gets. She had gone very still. Yes, she said. All of that is true. Then do not explain it. He heard his own voice, thick and slow and quite steady, and could not stop it, and did not particularly want to. You have kept me alive 11 weeks, and I am obliged to you, and I will not have you sitting by this bed waiting to be paid. Name your price. The candle burned. Somewhere below, a clock he had never heard before that autumn struck the quarter. You are the second person to say that to me in this house since August, said Thomasson. Your cousin said it in the Yellow Room on the 9th of September. He said it in a longer form, and he wrote it down afterwards, and I have kept the paper, and it is a very great deal of money. Then, you have had your speech 6 days, she said, and you have spent 3 words of it on that. She did not slam anything. She squared the book on the press, and set the candle where he could reach it with his left hand, which she had done every night for 11 weeks and did again that night, and she said, the 9th is on Tuesday, sleep if you can, and went out. She did not come at 9 on the 5th. Nurse came instead and would not answer questions. At 6:15 on the morning of the 6th of November, in the black dark, the Duke of Dunmarch heard a gig come round onto the gravel under his window and stand a moment, and heard a woman's step come down the steps and stop, and heard nothing else at all for perhaps 10 seconds. Then the gig went off down the avenue towards the Marchford Road, and he lay flat on his back in his own house with his mouth open, and could not make a sound loud enough to reach the window. His Grace is not to be disturbed on any account, said Mortimer in the corridor on Tuesday morning. Nurse will come down when she is called. Lock it if you must. They did not lock it. That was the one thing they got wrong. It took the Duke of Dunmarch 40 minutes to get out of his own bed. He went over the side on his left elbow and came down on the boards with a noise that nobody heard, because the hall below was full of chairs being set out, and after that it was a matter of the left arm and the left knee and 11 feet of carpet at a time, dragging a right side that did not belong to him and would not be argued with, resting with his forehead on the wood. He got to the gallery rail above the screens at 10:20 and lay along it on his side, and could see, between the balusters, the whole of the great hall of Dunmarch. 16 jurors on benches, a commissioner from London at the long table with 2 clerks, every considerable person in the county along the walls, and half the village at the door, and Adela in grey by the fire, and Mortimer at the table with his papers squared, and Thomasson in the black gown she had worn since March, standing alone in the middle of the floor with a satchel. Skell gave his evidence for 40 minutes. Gideon listened to a description of himself as a thing in a bed and found, somewhat to his surprise, that it did not touch him at all. You have attended him daily since August. Twice daily, sir. Has he spoken to you? He has not. Has he answered you? He has not. Have you asked him to? Said Thomasson. The commissioner said, Madam, you will have your turn. I beg your pardon, sir. She had her turn at noon. You are the Duchess of Dunmarch. I am. You are aware that you have no standing in this inquiry. The commission inquires of His Grace only. I am aware of it, sir. I have not come to ask for anything. She set the satchel on the table. I have come to put 3 papers before you, and then to name 1 price, and then to sit down. Name a price, madam. You will see. She took out the first paper. On the 9th of September, in the Yellow Room of this house, Mr. Mortimer Holloway made me an offer to withdraw. I asked him to write it down, because I keep books, and he wrote it, and here is over his name. I will read it, because it ought to be read aloud in the room it was made in. She held it flat. £3,000 in the funds. The house at Milsom Buildings, Bath, with the furniture. A carriage and a pair. £200 a year for life, in consideration whereof I undertake to leave Dunmarch within 7 days, to make no further claim upon the estate, to give no evidence before any commission, and these are his words, and I have not altered a syllable. To make no further claim upon the person of His Grace, nor to seek access to him, nor to hinder his removal to the house at Farrow. The hall made a sound. Mortimer half rose. £3,000, said Thomasson, the house, the carriage, and 200 a year. That is the price of him. I have carried it about in my pocket for 2 months so that I should know the figure exactly, because everybody in this county has been very free with what a clockmaker's daughter can be bought for, and I wanted to be sure I had it right. Sit down, madam, said the commissioner, not unkindly. You said one price of your own. I did. She folded the paper and gave it in. I do not want the estate. I will sign anything you like this morning, giving up the whole of it, my jointure, my settlement, in writing, before you go to dinner. I have no use for it, and I will not have anybody in this hall able to say I stood here for money. She looked round the 16 men on the benches. My price is one question, not asked by me, not asked by his cousin. Put by you, sir, in this room to my husband's face, where these 16 men can see him hear it. That is the whole of it. Carry him down or carry the commission up, but somebody in England must ask him something before you take his life from him with a pen. The commissioner looked at her for a long moment. Before I answer that, he said, there is a matter I must have cleared. The rents of this estate have been stopped since the 29th of August. Yet this household has been maintained, 19 servants paid quarterly to the day, a physician twice daily coals, a roof mended, a tenant's relief in October. My clerk has had the books since Saturday. He turned, read it. The clerk stood. The whole is drawn upon one account, sir, at the Marchford Bank, opened the 25th of August in the name of Thomasson Halloway. Paid in £2,140, being the proceeds of a sale by auction at Markford on the 23rd of August of the stock in trade tools, fixtures, clocks, and the lease of the shop in Bridge Street of the late Mr. Halloway, clockmaker, deceased in March. The auctioneer's account is attached. Paid out since £381, 11 shillings, every item of it wages, coals, physician, tradesmen, tenants, nothing to herself. Not a shilling, sir. He turned the page. There is a further paper, an unsent letter, taken from the writing case with her leave. It is to a house agent at Bath. It asks the terms of a small house in a quiet street, ground floor, with a room that gives on a garden and no stair to it, to be taken in her own name from Lady Day for, I read her words, a gentleman who cannot use a stair, and who is not to be sent where they are proposing to send him. The great hall of Dunmarch went so quiet that Gideon, flat on his side on the gallery floor with his face against the balusters, could hear the fire. She had sold her father's shop, every clock in it, the whole of what she had in the world, in the 3rd week of August, 11 days after he came off that horse, and she had never told him, and she had stood in this hall and given up the rest of it in front of the county, and 6 days ago he had looked at the only woman on earth who had ever spent everything she had on him, and told her to name her price. He got one hand round the baluster and put everything he had left into his chest, and what came out of the gallery of Dunmarch and down and into that silent hall was not a word. It was a sound like a door being forced. 200 faces went up. There is a man on the gallery, said the commissioner. There is nobody on the, said Mortimer, and stopped. They brought him down in the hall chair, 4 footmen and the whole county watching, and set him at the end of the long table with his right arm dead in his lap, and his hair on end, and a nightshirt under coat somebody had thrown over him. And Gideon Holloway did not care in the least, because from that chair he could see her face. Your Grace, said the commissioner, can you tell me what day it is, and who is at this table? Tuesday, the 9th of November. He took his time. Nobody hurried him. You are the commissioner, and I do not know your name. That is my cousin Mortimer. That is my sister Adela. That is Dr. Skell, who has attended me twice a day for 11 weeks and has never once asked me to look at him. A long breath. And that is my wife, who has been asked to leave this room by everybody in it except me. Your Grace, are you able to name your estate? Dunmarch, Barrow, the Wexley Farms and the mill. Rental 4,200, less the mill. I can give you the tenants if you have an hour. He turned his head, which took effort, and looked down the table at the 16 men on the benches. Ask me the other question. Which question is that, sir? The one this hall has been full of since August. Whether I am fit to be spoken to. He got his left hand up onto the table. I am going to answer it by telling you the worst thing I have done in my life, in front of all of you, because if I say it here I cannot ever take it back, and I do not deserve to be able to. On the 4th of November at 9 in the evening, with my speech 6 days old, I said 3 words to that woman. I said, "Name your price." The hall did not make a sound. I said it because I had a sum that would not balance, and my cousin was kind enough to hand me an answer that made it balance. And because a man who has been on his back 11 weeks will believe anything that lets him stop being grateful. She had sold her father's shop on the 23rd of August. Every clock in it, the tools he taught her on. She paid 19 servants and a physician and a coal merchant out of it and never told me. And she was writing to Bath for a house with no stairs in it, in case you gentlemen took me away from her. And I looked at her across that candle and asked her what she wanted for her trouble. He stopped. "There is no part of that which is the fall's doing. My legs are broken. My judgment was not. Your Grace, I have not finished. There are 3 things and then you may have your verdict. First, I am not going to get better. I want that written down in your book in those words, so that nobody in this county has to whisper it at a christening. The right side is gone. I shall not walk across this hall on my own legs again. I shall not sign my own name with my own hand. I am learning the left, and it is a disgrace. That is the state of me, and it is permanent, and I am the Duke of Dunmarch notwithstanding, and any man who wants to argue about it may come and say so to my chair. Second, the paper of the 9th of September is to be copied and go to the Lord Chancellor with your report. Mortimer Halloway leaves the stewardship today and this house tomorrow, and he may keep Barrow Lodge, because I have no intention of turning a man out of doors and then explaining myself for the rest of my life. Third, he looked at his wife. £2,140 is to be repaid to the Duchess out of the Michaelmas rents with 5 per centum from August, and the whole of the unentailed estate. This house, the park, the Wexley Farms, is to be settled upon her absolutely, and she will manage it, because she has been managing it since August without a shilling of authority from anybody, and has done it better than I did with the lot. He sat back. Now bring in your verdict, and be quick about it, because I have been on the floor since 9:30, and I should like to be laid down. The 16 men were out of the hall 11 minutes. The finding was that Gideon, Duke of Dunmarch, was of sound mind and entirely capable of governing himself and his estate. The petition was dismissed with costs against Mr. Mortimer Halloway personally, and the Commissioner, going out, said in the doorway to nobody in particular that he had sat on 9 of these in his life and would remember this one. Adela stayed. She came up on the Thursday and stood at the foot of the bed and said, "I saw the letter, and I did not read the whole of it." And Thomasson said, "No, you did not," and after a while she began to be useful, and 11 years later she was the one who read to him in the evenings when the Duchess was out on the estate. He apologized for a long time and was not let off. "You may say it once a day," said Thomasson, "and after that I shall charge you." "How much?" "You cannot afford me. Your wife has all your unentailed property." That was in December. They were, by the following spring, the sort of couple that servants make jokes about. There is a wheeled chair at Dunmarch now, and 2 sticks in the hall, and a ramp of good oak laid over the 3 steps to the terrace, and the Duke goes out along it most days between the showers to shout at people about turnips. His signature is a shocking sprawl, and he is unrepentant about it. He is carried up to bed and makes a running commentary on the ascent. On Sundays the Duchess of Dunmarch wins 15 clocks in order, all through the house, ending in the long gallery with a tall walnut regulator that came back from a shop in Bridge Street, Markford, in the 2nd year, and that keeps better time than anything else in the county. Her husband follows her round the whole circuit, and has never once been of the slightest use, and would not miss it for the world.